this line will serve as my waistline. So my waist to hip measurement is 6 inches. I'll mark 6 inches here as well, and I'll connect that into a straight line. Next, I'll be taking my crotch depth of 9 inches plus 0.75 inch ease, that's 9.75. I'll mark that here as well, and I'll connect it into a straight line. So the next measurement I'll be taking is my waist to my knee measurement, which is 23 inches. So I'll mark 23 inches here for my waist to my knee measurement. I'll mark here as well, and I'll connect into a straight line. Next, I'll take my waist to ankle measurement, which is 39 inches. Just move the fabric so you can see. My waist to ankle is 39 inches. I'll mark it at this other side as well and connect it into a straight line. Now I'll be taking 2 inches for my hem allowance. Connect that into a straight line, and then I'll cut off the excess. Next, I'll label the lines as follows: my waistline, hip line, crotch line, my knee line, and my ankle line. Now the hip measurement I'm using is 40 inches, so I'll divide that by 4. That will give me 10 inches. To that, I'm going to add 0.25 inch ease. That will give me 10.25 inches. So on my hip line, I'm marking 10.25 inches there. So I'll mark the 10.25 on the waistline also. That's 10.25 on the hip line and the waistline also, and then I'll mark it also on the crotch line. So now I'll connect the points into a straight line. Next, my waist measurement divided by 4 is 8.25, and I'll add 0.25 inch ease allowance as well. That will give me 8.5. So I'll add 1 inch to that for my dot allowance. That's 9.5 inches, and I'm going to mark that on my waist starting from this line. So I'll connect that line, that point, to my hip line. So next, I'm going to, on my crotch line, remember I marked 10.25 all the way down. Now that 10.25 divided by 4 will give me 2.56 inches. So I'll mark 2.56 inches here. I'll mark 2.56 inches here on the crotch line outside the straight line. So on this point, I'll go up by 1.5 inches. I'll connect that to form my crotch curve. So this is my crotch curve. Next, I'll measure the crotch line, and I have 12.81 inches altogether. That's 10.25 inches plus 2.56 inches. So I'll mark 6.4 inches as the midpoint of this line. I'll also mark it on the waistline, on the hip line, the knee line, and ankle line as well. So next, I'll connect the dots into a straight line all the way down. Now this will serve as my center line. Next, my knee measurement divided by 2 equal 8 inches. Remember, now we have a center line, so I'll divide 8 inches by 2, and that will give me 4. I'll place my tape with the 4-inch mark on the center line and mark 4 inches on both sides of the line, of this line. So next, my ankle measurement is 12 inches divided by 2, that'll give me 6 inches. So because of the center line, I also divide 6 by 2 to give me 3 inches, and place the tape with a 3-inch mark on the center line and mark 3 inches on both sides of the line. Now I'll connect the marks to form the trouser. So what I'm doing now is connect the crotch to the knee. And now the out seam. I'm connecting the crotch to the knee. So now the knee to the ankle. Then on this center line at the waist, I'll go downwards by 4 inches and I'll mark half an inch on both sides of the center line. So I have half an inch here and here, and I'll connect that to meet at this point to form my dart. So the next thing I did was to add half an inch seam allowance round up trouser. I didn't add half an inch to the bottom here because I already added 2 inches allowance. So I'll fold this before cutting. This is what we have for the front panel. And now to cut the zipper fly, remember I just cut this out of this part. I just place it back. But it's totally up to you. You can decide to draft it along with the trouser and not cut it all out, but for this tutorial I'll do it this way. So I'll mark 2.5 inches and draw a line downwards to meet the hip line and cut this out. Now for the pocket opening, I'll place my measuring tape ½ inch away from the edge because of my seam allowance, my ½ inch seam allowance, and I'll mark 1.5 inches. Then I'll go down by 6 inches. That's exactly on my hip line. And I'll curve that from the 1.5 inch mark to the side of the hip line. So I'll mark out ½ an inch seam allowance for stitching it to the pocket facing. I'm going to follow this line to cut this part out after using this to draft out my back panel. Now I'll trace the front pattern on another piece of fabric. Make sure you have enough room up here and some space here as well. As you can see, I'm done tracing. I'll place the front panel back on it and transfer my lines to the back panel. So I have my waistline, hip line, crotch line, my knee line, and my ankle line. I'll take my front panel away and connect the lines I'll place my front panel back. Remember this center line? Now I'll transfer that center line to the back panel by marking it here and at the bottom, and I'll connect that into a straight line. To draft a new crotch curve for the back panel, I'll measure what I have here. This 0.5 inch is the seam allowance. From here to this mark is what I'll be using. I have 3.8 inches there, and I'll divide that into 2 to get the midpoint. That gave me 1.9 inches here, so I'll mark it here. Next, on the crotch line, I'll extend outwards by 2 inches and go down by half an inch from the 2-inch mark. Making reference to the front, I had 12.81 inches here, that is excluding the allowance, and I divided that by 4 and I got 2.56, remember? So I'll mark 2.56 upwards here on this midpoint. And I'll draw a straight line to connect that. Now I'll connect this point to this with my curved ruler. Remember, I went down by half an inch from the crotch line, so don't forget that's where you're supposed to connect it to. So this is my new crotch line for my back panel. I'm going to create a new waistline for the back panels. The waistline for the back, remember, was 9.5 inches. Then I added half an inch seam allowance on both sides. That gave me 10.5 inches in total for the waistline. I'm going to slant my tape to meet the waist here and mark 10.5 inches. And I'm going to connect this point to this point. Next, I'm adding 1 inch to both sides of the ankle. This is the out seam, I'm adding 1 inch there, and this is the in seam, I'm adding 1 inch here as well. I'll do the same thing on the knee. I'll do the same on the out seam of the crotch, the hip. I'm going to add to the waistline. So on the inseam, I'm not going to add anything to this crotch line as well. I added 1 inch to the knee. I also added 1 inch to the ankle on both sides. So I'll connect the new waist to the hip. That's at the 1 inch extension I just made, and connect that all the way to the ankle. And I'll do the same on the inseam from my crotch to my knee. My former waistline. I'm going to measure what I have here again. Remember, it was 3.8 inches we said earlier. From here, I'll transfer that 3.8 inches back to my new waistline, and I'll go down from that mark by 5 inches. Making sure it's parallel to the crotch curve line. Now I'll connect the points and I'll mark 0.5 inches on both sides of that new line I just made. This is going to be my dot, so I'll connect it at that 5-inch mark here. I'm going to cut this out now. I placed the front panel back on the outline. I traced on the back panel. So you can see the difference between the back and the front is that the back has an extension upwards and it's far extended here, and has extra 1 inch here as well. Now for the waistband, I'm using a waist measurement of 33 inches. My fabric is on fold and I'm just going to knot the middle like so. Then I'll mark my waist measurement. That's 33 inches divided by 2. That will give me 16.5 inches. And I'm going to add 0.25 inches. That will give me 16.75. I'll mark it there and I'll draw a straight line. And I'll be using a length of 4 inches for my waistband. I want the band to be 1.5 inches, and so to get that I'll need 3 inches because to be on fold, and half an inch on both sides for my seam allowance to join to the trouser. So now I'll open this up, and on this other half I'll take a different measurement. I'm marking 33 divided by 2, that's 16.5 plus 0.25 inch ease. That will give me 16.75 inches. I'm going to add 2 inches for the flap of the trouser and half an inch seam allowance. This is 16.75 plus 2.5 inches. Okay, for this line I'll draw a line and I'll cut this out. On this side I forgot to add half an inch seam allowance, so I'm adding that now. So I'll cut it off here, and that's what we have for the waistband. Now lastly, for the pocket, I'll transfer the crotch line and the center line to a new piece of fabric and trace the shape of the front panel at the sides of the front panel like so. Make sure to note these 2 points, and I'll cut off from that part. But before I do that, I'll draw a line like so. I'll cut this on fold. Open this up, set aside one of them. I have my front panel again here. I'm just going to cut this part out. Remember the pocket facing side. I'm going to cut this part out, and then with right sides facing each other, I'll place it on it like so, and I'll cut out that part as well. Now I'm done making pocket facing. Please remember to subscribe, like and share this